edition of Unpacked. My name is Waupi Mongulu. My guest today is Dr. McDonald Mafuta Mwale, the Reserve Bank Governor. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, you are rising to the top amidst economic challenges here in Malawi. What is your Eastern strategy?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. Indeed, we have to have strategies. When I see the central bank, it's largely to do with monetary policy. And indeed, we have been doing monetary policy, which is normally what we call demand management. But I think demand management in this particular sense might not be sufficient. So my instant strategy will be working with the stakeholders like the private sector, working with the stakeholders like the government officials, indeed to see how we can have an impact, and including our own banks, how we can impact the supply side. Because when the problem is in the supply side problem, normally maybe monetary policy is not effective, because monetary policy works on the demand side of the equation. So I think it's a long time we have been doing demand side. So we want to open up as a central bank to work with all other institutions to see how we can have an impact on the supply side.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of monetary policy that you have touched, which is currently sitting at 26%, should we say, how has it really contributed to the economy of Malawi?
Monetary policy, it has contributed to the economy largely because, as I said, it is to do with the demand management. We believe that without monetary policy, probably, even inflation could have been extremely high. Why is, if you look at the two components of inflation in Malawi, there is the food and non-food component. Normally, monetary policy, as I said, it is working on the demand side. And in this particular case, the issue is that non-food has remained a little bit lower compared to food prices, which are normally driven by the supply side. So this remaining lower, and it is actually declining at the moment, is because we still believe that that's the impact of the monetary policy, which has reduced the second round effects from the food prices to the other prices. So the contribution in that case is by lowering or ensuring that the non-food inflation remains constantly lower than the food.
Mm-hmm. Now, in each and every component, we do have challenges. What challenges have you met since the inception of monetary policy and the progress itself in this country?
Yes, a lot of challenges, but as of now, I could mention probably three. For monetary policy, because we are here to do with the inflation, I see that the main challenge that the monetary policy has achieved is largely not able to reduce inflation to sustainable levels or our targets, which are normally single digits. As I said, monetary policy, demand side. But in Malawi, largely, it is the supply side of food, production units, that probably is the first challenge. But going further to that, I think in Malawi, let me talk to other two issues that I believe that are behind inflation rate. One of which, in Malawi we talk of different shocks. There was COVID that affected the economy. There were floods that affect the economy, or indeed droughts. But there is one shock that people are not talking about. This is to do with, I call it myself, as a social media shock. This has got a huge impact in causing inflation in Malawi. Social media is to do with misinformation, and I'm sure you have seen some time back, somebody just decides to take a press release from the Reserve Bank of 2021, change the date, and put it in the social media saying Reserve Bank has devalued the currency. Well, here, nothing has happened. But that alone has an impact to increase the prices in Malawi, because the traders or importers would now change prices immediately without even coming to us and verify the information. Social media. That is a shock to the economy. That is a shock causing inflation. Because of that, I am calling it as a social media shock to our economy. And in that aspect, misinformation is driving inflation over and above the food problem. What do we have to do? We should fight misinformation with information. Therefore, you see me a lot coming to the open, explaining what is happening in the central bank, explaining to the people of the dangers of doing some of these things, explaining to the people what they need to do in those circumstances. Because all of us together, we can fight inflation, not only the central bank. The third thing that I see as an impact that is causing inflation is the tendency now that everybody with a dollar is trying to get more out of it, out of greed. Getting more out of it by selling to the black market. If you sell your dollar to the black market, what do? You are actually causing inflation, because at that point, anybody who is buying that forex from the black market to import, he will obviously increase his prices because he's including that cost of black market in his pricing. So that tendency alone is also causing some inflation in Malawi. So these are my three things that really I'm trying to work out how, as a nation, do we have to work over them.
Recently, we had the pre-budget sessions, and Honorable Simplicicio Labana MP said that the economy is earmarked to reach 4%, and was seeing some stabilities that are reviving to get the economy into a better space. Now, when we look at these shocks, and we're talking about inflation, that's food inflation, are there any plans that the Reserve Bank of Malawi are going to work on with the Ministry of Agriculture, since Malawi is 90% relying on agriculture and food is the main cause of inflation? Is there anything in the pipeline?
As a central bank, we believe that we have got this role to still work with these institutions. MDS, you are talking of the Ministry of Agriculture, you are talking of Ministry of Finance, and or indeed the private sector, or indeed our commercial banks. Right now, all the commercial banks have already we have already discussed to say, how do we come to the real sector? The banks, they are now aware of what I want to do. Basically, in Malawi, we always say that agriculture is the mainstay. But if you look at the figures in terms of how our banks lend money to agriculture sector itself, is at the lowest level. There are all other sectors that they do lend money to. So that means the banking sector, which I'm in charge, is not in line with where the economy can generate a lot growth. Therefore, we are discussing with the banks to see how can we then look at a situation where we are working towards real sector where there is potential growth. So to me, I think the issue is what I said earlier. Let's not focus on the demand management side, but that should be complemented by the supply side. So my approach is really that of incentive approach. Can we incentivize production units, exporters, well enough? And my approach will really work with the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Trade, to come up with who are our exporters and what are the issues that they are looking for to be supported in the immediate term. So there could be, even when I was talking to the Minister of Trade, there are some production units which are now even failing to accept orders from outside because they can't produce. if an institution like that comes to the Minister of Trade to say, I have these orders, but I need this support to export to this country to generate, and I'm expecting by the end of the year, I'm expecting to generate so much forex to come back to Malawi. I think those are candidates that we need to wake up and work with, because we are assisting them to assist the country at large. So my incentive approach, complementing the demand management side, I think that is the approach that as a central bank we need to be part of the economy to see how we can enhance the cake before it is being shared. The cake in this case is a growth.
Mm-hmm. Now, as we continue to speak on the growth of the economy, the country is experiencing high rates of inflation. What do you think needs to be done to lower the inflation?
One, I think for any problem, the most important thing is you need to realize what is the cause. In this particular case, as I said, there is an element of supply side that is not happening or weak in terms of we are not producing enough for our own consumption and later on for the export market. Therefore, the incentive approach should really not only focus on exports, but also on food production. With the food, if suppose today the country produces enough food for the country's requirement, and even a supply, in oversupply that is over and above the food requirement. Obviously, we see and we have observed over the long time that inflation is managed. So the supply side of this country has not to be neglected. Let's focus on those that can produce, the private sector, understand their problems and help them as institutions, as arms of government. But second, as I said, the three issues that cause inflation, let's work on the information management. Because in economics, the more we give information to the general public, it manages inflation expectations. As a result, my focus is also to talk more, get more information from the public. Don't fear consultations. Open up, because I always also believe that nobody has the monopoly of wisdom. Somebody somewhere has an idea that can help the economy at large. So these discussions, giving the right information, can also help a lot in managing inflation.
You're watching Unpacked here on MBC. My guest today is Dr. McDonald Mafuta-Male, the Reserve Bank Governor. He has talked more on inflation and what can be done for the country in order to realize the goals that Malawi is working on to improve the economy. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. You're watching Unpacked here on MBC. My guest today is the Reserve Bank Governor, Dr. McDonald Mafuta-Male. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, when we look at the macroeconomic stability issues in the country, what can be done in order to improve the forex issues in the country?
We need to focus on the supply side. Here, as a country, the simple problem is that we are not producing enough. And therefore, as I said, my approach will really be the incentivizing approach to target specific units, production units, which can enhance production of the economy and the exportation of our produce. So we have already discussed with the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Trade on how we are going to come together, the banks on one side, the producers on the other side, and really to look at those issues that are constraining our production cycles, and to see together as an economy come up with strategies which will take those challenges away to free these colleagues who are the production units to produce enough, at least for our consumption. That has got to do with the import substitution. Therefore, there will be less demand on our little forex to look for consumption outside. Later on, if we work really serious, these have got the potential to export. Malawian goods are in demand somewhere, somehow. We need to tap into those markets, and already I have talked to 3 or 4, 5 production units, big companies in Malawi. They are saying that we are ready, and we already are refusing some orders from other countries because they don't have the capacity. We have to give them the capacity to generate this product. But also at the same time, there are a lot that is happening. We are going to into serious discussion in terms of how we can safeguard the little forex that we do receive. You know, there are a lot of leakages. Our forex, through price, transfer price, through even externalization deliberately. Can we aggregate our minerals and make sure that we have structured markets for agricultural produce, so that whatever we have earned should really be safeguarded and properly used for the benefit of Malawians. So safeguarding the little that we receive, and also producing more, targeting those that have got capacity, that have good markets to export. Those are the people that are going to be my friends.
Now, speaking of friendship and safeguarding, it will be a little bit tackling on the same issue of information that you talked about.
Yes.
Now, we have seen recently Reserve Bank of Malawi instructing organizations to move their foreign currency accounts from the commercial banks to the RBM. Now, is this the right move at the moment?
There is, first of all, before I answer whether it is the right move or not, I think, thank you for that question, because it is giving me a chance to explain a little bit of what happened there. There is a misconception or the misinformation. Whether deliberate or not, I don't know. But first of all, let me tell you what the Reserve Bank is, a central bank. It is only government institutions and banks that can open an account in the central bank. No matter how rich you are, you cannot open an account here. No matter how rich an institution is, they cannot open here. Why I'm saying it's misinformation is because we have heard, or even some other people in the information knowledge, saying that our regulation is forcing NGOs to open accounts in the Reserve Bank. That is not true. What is true is government institutions have to open here, because we are a bank to the government and commercial banks. So government institutions have to open their accounts here, and for NGOs, the requirement was that when they receive their money on behalf of Malawians, because that's what NGOs do, at least we need some accountability in the use of those resources. So, their resources arrive in the commercial bank, as they normally do. They have their accounts there in the commercial banks. When they are using those resources, at least they should do 70% conversion at this commercial bank, and the commercial bank has the responsibility to give it to the central bank. Why we did that is because we saw some issues that were not probably regarded as good for economic management. So we thought we could at least manage the situation by doing that, and we had a discussion, my team at least had a discussion with NGOs, Kongoma, where the sentiments were very clear to say, we have no problem. You can convert, we can convert as commercial banks and transmit, because all what we do is we do in Malawi Kwacha. We support our people, support the citizenry in Malawi Kwacha. Therefore, conversion is at the commercial bank level. We are not asking NGOs to come here. You see again with information, 2 or 3 weeks ago, there were some people asking us to say, my commercial bank has closed my account, he has taken my account to Reserve Bank. It can't happen. If that happened, at least it's not from an instruction from the central bank. My account has been deducted 70%. Because RBM has taken it. RBM cannot do that. It can never happen. It's misinformation, which again, it needs information like what I'm doing today.
Now, in all this, where do you put the growth of businesses here in Malawi?
The growth of businesses here, I largely put it at one. Malawian businesses should learn to develop local backward and forward value chains. So backward linkages, forward linkages is I'm producing something for somebody as inputs. Let's rely on each other. That will reduce our dependence on the imported raw material. It's not that we should close completely from importing raw materials. There are some raw materials that we don't have.
Now, Governor, what are the specific RIBM plans to contribute to the ATM strategy here in the country?
Yeah, ATM is the presidential strategy which focuses on agriculture, focuses on tourism and mining. These 3 sectors were identified to be highly potential to help us, to help government or to help this economy, not only to achieve forex or for exportation, but also looking at job creation and the potential that they have in terms of contributing to growth. In terms of job creation, these are the areas that most of our people are employed. For example, agriculture, and you can look at tourism. Largely, it's export, proceeds, and creation of jobs. So it was strategically chosen that these are the 3 that if we focus on, most of our problems will be solved. Therefore, come to our contribution into those areas. 1, if you talk of agriculture, as a central bank, with its subsector of the banking sector, we are discussing seriously to see how can we align with agriculture as a sector, the banking sector, the financial sector. It is no secret, banks have not gone into agriculture lending significantly. The lending is largely in other sectors. So that is something that I am really talking on a weekly basis with the CEOs of the commercial banks to see how can we change this narrative, to make sure that we are contributing to those areas where there is potential growth. Tourism is happening here. We give licenses to touristic centers, travel agents, and all of that. A lot of forex is happening there, but I think management or control or whatever is being received, probably we need to do more. So our contribution in that sector, it has got serious potential. But I think we needed to consolidate, coordinate enough to make sure that whatever proceeds are received in the tourism sector are indeed for the benefit of Malawians. I think that should be one of my focus, to work with the Minister of Tourism and indeed all the stakeholders in this sector to see to it that they are contributing their good share to the development of the economy. For mining, this is an area where there is absolutely immense potential. But as a country, we haven't tapped into that potential. Therefore, as a central bank, you have heard we are a little bit contributing in there because we are an institution that is only mandated to buy gold. So we are buying gold from, we call them artisanal miners, small-scale miners. These colleagues need a market because as of now and every day we see a lot of potential in this, because a lot of our people are going into this sector earning a living. They can't earn a living if there is no buyer. So our contribution is really to try and come up with a structure whereby they are encouraged, they are supported in terms of the instrument, the equipment that they can use for the mining, and also they should have a ready market somewhere where they can take their gold to be sold, not at exploitative prices. And that alone has also contributed to reduce smuggling. We have lost a lot of gold in this country. We are losing a lot of gold. Even if the central bank was out of it, then it means the problem could have been massive than the way it is. But otherwise, in terms of the other big companies that are coming to Malawi, I think it is the way that we have to participate in those negotiations to make sure that whatever is mined in Malawi is benefiting the people of Malawi, and we should not have the situations where country is exploited.
Now, you have spoken very well there about benefiting the people of Malawi. Now, I'll still go back to the same pre-budget session where people were given the chance to say their views on how they would want to contribute to the economy. Now, you as the Reserve Bank Governor, your final word to Malawians, and for the Malawians to be having faith in their economy, what can you say about that, your final word?
Thank you. My final word could be, one, as Malawians, we need to see what we are doing. Are we contributing positively or negatively? Because contribution can be negative. In this particular case, I think less diseased in issues that, for example, I've mentioned here. One, misinformation, deliberate misinformation of the other to cause havoc to the economy. It will not help anybody. Because at the end of the day, it will hurt you as well as your relatives. Two, the issue of wanting more out of the dollar market. The laws are very clear. We only license two types of people to trade in forex. Authorized dealer banks, that is the commercial banks, as well as the bureaus. If you don't have money enough to open a bank, at least open a bureau and sell money, sell forex. But if you are outside that, just know you are an enemy of the state, because you are killing everybody with inflation. Anybody you are trading with is going to create inflation. So we have to be cautious, and it's indeed a warning to Malawians to say whatever we are doing, we have to deal with that, and we have to make sure that we are taking responsibility of our own country. That is what I could say. Thank you.
Governor, thank you so much for giving us this time on Unpacked.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's how we end this week's edition of Unpacked here on NBC. I was talking to the Governor of the Reserve Bank, Dr. McDonald Mafuta Mwalio, who elaborated more on how we can grow our economy here in the country, as well as the plans that the Reserve Bank of Malawi is going to engage with the Ministry of Agriculture in order to grow more food here in Malawi and sustain our economy. He has also touched on issues of forex, on how Malawians can avoid being perpetrators to bring down the issue of